Now, you're here today to learn or get yourself familiar with Wrike and the essential project management functionality that comes with it. My name is Alex Homer. I have the pleasure of being your facilitator and host. I am a customer success strategy program lead here based out of APJ. So it is a bit of a late morning or early night, I guess, for me. And so it's nice to be here with you all. Now, what do we hope to get out of the session today? Well, by the end of this, we'd hope that you get to understand how to use Wrike's Gantt chart functionality, put together some dependencies between your various tasks and how to properly utilize that, how to use the filtering functionality, how to be able to get better use out of that, get some quick project insights, give you a bit of a presentation on, or at least a show on how to use the new chart functionality. And of course, a quick heads up on the resource view. What's that all about? And how do I get visibility of my team's capacity? I'm going to end that poll there now. Thanks for your responses. There are a bunch that have come through, so thank you very much for those. As we progress, I will try to go through those accordingly. Ooh, bit of a blooper there. My apologies. All righty. Before I dive into that, however, I want to take a moment here to spend a second on one of our other customers who's using Wrike for exactly this kind of scenario. Arvig and their director of R&D, Sean Carlson, came to Wrike with the challenge of ultimately executing vast and small projects inefficiently. And so trying to be able to coordinate labor and get people to kick off projects quickly and easily became a bit of a challenge for them, right? The solution was to have custom workflows put together in Wrike, put together customized blueprints, and of course, having those effectively and efficiently rolled out with Wrike's Gantt chart functionality. Of course, they're also utilizing some of our automations, which if you've joined any of our instructor-led training sessions so far, there is going to be more on that as well. And of course, they're now getting the most out of Wrike by having it deployed to improving productivity by around 10%. And of course, they've standardized their processes and getting approvals by the right people. Sean Carlson, their director of R&D, has said that Arvig has differentiated themselves by offering exceptional service and customer experience. So how do we get to that for you, essentially, right? So let's dive into that. Let's get into Wrike and have this demonstrated in your instance, in my instance, I should say. Now, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here and hopefully have you all being able to see that okay. Hopefully, you're all working out of Wrike's new Lightspeed view. And if you're not, please head to your profile picture in the top right corner and click on Try Wrike's Lightspeed. Now, as part of this session, I'm going to be working out of a very basic space and structure, and there is going to be some functionality that I'm going to be utilizing out of our labs page. If you're not familiar with our labs page, I please recommend heading to wrike.com/labs. And when you get there, you get visibility of some of the latest functionality that comes with Wrike. Things like the new dashboard, generative AI, which I will be using as part of this, chart view, which I'll also be tapping into, and most importantly of all, here, this ability to roll updates in Gantt chart. Now, our labs page is where we go to essentially release functionality that's come out of beta, and we're gathering now user feedback. So if you've got ideas, suggestions, or anything for our team, there is an option there to leave feedback for the team accordingly. So I'm going to kick this off by putting together a project, really simple project at that, right? I'm going to have a look at someone's examples here. And unfortunately, I won't be able to see them because I had that little blunder earlier. So what I will do instead is at this point, create a project where it's going to be on Wrike's essential project management functionality, right? Instructor session. Wrike's essential project functionality. Now, I'm going to click on that project, and hopefully you've all seen this before, but you may not have seen the ability to add this in. Now, with Wrike's generative AI, I'm going to save myself a little bit of time here. Just basically ask it, what deliverables would I need to run as part of a project for one of Wrike's online instructor-led training sessions, right? Hit enter on that. Get together training materials, training modules, virtual classroom setup, pre-training assessment. Okay, this is all really good stuff. This is some really good baseline stuff to be able to kick this off. So I'm going to use this. I'm going to hit insert and use this as part of my project. Make that the heading. Now, this is all good and well here, these little components. But you know what? I actually kind of want to be able to turn these into tasks themselves. So I'm going to highlight that and make that a sub-item of its own. I want to also have training materials, add that as a sub-item of its own. I'm going to go here, make it a virtual classroom setup, put together some pre-training assessment piece, maybe training session recordings, post-training evaluation. This is important for me because I will use this as soon as I start to put together, of course, the actual Gantt chart. And there we go. Now, in case you're wondering, I quickly created a project here by working out of my view. Another great way to create a project is when you're in your folder, actually right-clicking on that folder and going to ultimately add an item and create a project. By doing this, you also get the option to, by default, choose one of your previous views, choose who the project owner is, start date, and due dates. Now, because I haven't gone through this option, at this point, this project is very much bare bones. Okay, so there are no dates that it has to be done by. So I want to hope that this project is at least completed by September 30th, and I'm kicking it off today on the September 24th. That's right, I'm a day ahead. Now, I prefer to use the Gantt chart view. So clicking on this and going to Gantt chart, I get visibility of all of my tasks. And well, at this point, I don't want to see all the projects. I actually want to look at specifically my instructor-led training session. And again, now I'd rather not have it ordered in that way. So I'm going to go by name and choose to pop up Gantt chart. As you do this, Gantt charts, it'll give you the option between all the views, whether you want to make them public or personal. Public being anyone in your team that gets access to this project will have visibility of this particular view. Only me, meaning only I, will get visibility of this particular view. That's important because when we start to use the filters and we start to create custom filters applied to various views, that will come in super handy. But for now, I'm just going to call this anyone with public access and hit create. Now, this project as it stands, there it goes. Hopefully finishes on the 30th. Great. I'm going to add a few more columns here. And I want to do that because I want to know ultimately the duration of that particular task. I want to add some effort potentially next to it. And I also want to know who the assignee might be next to that. You can also add all your other custom fields as part of this as well. You may also want to see your baseline due dates. Those will come in handy when we start to do snapshots. So task one. Now, before I actually start putting dates into it, and this is one way of certainly doing it, I actually want to choose this to be Gantt manual order. One of the things that I see often with customers is they go between various views, be it in list view, table, or calendar even, and they go, it's not the order that I expected to see that in. So by putting it in Gantt manual order, you're effectively saying, well, if I move this down here, this is now going to be the order that I see these tasks in, right? So I'm going to save as that being my primary order for this for now. Task one, putting together training material. Okay, well, how long did it take me to put together training material for this session? Probably sufficient more time. So let's say it took me 4 days, right? Training modules, putting together that aspect of it all, maybe 5 days. The virtual classroom setup was only really 1 day. Pre-training assessment took 2 days, 3 days, 1 day, 5 days, right? Great. I've made some assumptions here on how long those tasks might take as far as days go. If you've got access to Enterprise or Enterprise Pinnacle with us, you'll also have access to this notion of effort. Effort is essentially saying how many hours might you expect to spend on that particular task. Now, by default, it's basic, meaning that if I say this task might take 4 days of duration, how many hours will I expect to spend? I'm going to go pie in the sky, say something like 12 hours, right? 12 hours over the course of 4 days, that's 3 hours each day. That's how Wrike will literally just determine whoever's assigned to that particular task is going to get 3 hours accordingly. Let's go to number 2. Let's assume that that's going to take us 3. Let's assume that that's going to take us 4. It's going to take us 1, 2, 5, 6. Okay. Now, who's going to actually be assigned to managing these particular pieces. I'm going to actually just highlight it all to have it assigned to a project manager. All these tasks literally just going to be managed at this point by a role type, a role, not an individual just yet, as project manager. Now, I've got a couple of questions kind of coming through, so I'm going to spend a second here to have a look at them if I can. Now, I've got a question here on if we need to put effort per day or total hours of task. Is this, do we need to put effort per day or is this total hours of effort? Great question there, Vikash. Thank you for it. That effort that we're putting in here is specifically to the total amount of effort that you might spend on this task. This session won't cover the workload charts, but we will look to run a session on workload charts where you can then allocate specific effort to each day. Got another question here on if you have more than 9 tasks and choose to number them in the title, how can you get 10 to appear under 9? From my experiences, the 10 shows under 1. Great question there. So because 1 is still, if I put in now 10, so to your point, and type in name here, and choose to have this ordered by name, that's exactly what's going to happen. And that's because 1 still is ahead of. So if you need to have this in that particular order and you want to follow that numbering or naming convention, what you'll need to do is put a 0 in front of your other numbers there. So 0, 5, keep going until I end up getting to, I hope that answers your question there, Victoria. Victoria, I think that is. So I hope that answers your question there. Question there on, can you access blueprints, tasks, subtasks with AI instead, or just getting a task set up? Great question. You can't access you can't access your blueprints just yet. But that said, you can add subtasks and you can add blueprinted subtasks to it. If I get a moment, I will get onto that. Now, I've got my tasks here in my order, 0 to 1, 2, 3, 4. That's lovely and good and well. And because I've added here now my durations, when do I expect to kind of kick this first task off? Great. Well, I actually know to kick it off yesterday. Okay. In doing so, because I have duration already applied, the Gantt chart will already have these pre-filled to be completed on those dates. I'm also working on the weekends here, it turns out. And this is where the power of predecessor starts to get really useful. Using this predecessor column is two training modules, in fact, depending on the training material being completed. Some might say yes, yes it is. And in which case, I'm going to type in here, finish to start. So meaning that row number 1 needs to be finished before number 2 can start. And in doing so, not 1, sorry, my apologies, that's 2FS. Row number 2 needs to be finished before 3 can start. And so now we've had a dependency that exists between these 2 tasks. Great. Does the virtual classroom setup need to be completed after the training modules? No, we could probably start that at the same time as number 1. So in which case, this one isn't necessarily dependent on that one, but it'll start at about the same sort of time. And so therefore, it's a start-to-start dependency. They will start together. And you'll notice now that these 2 tasks will start together, but not dependent on the other in the sense of one has to finish on it. They'll start together. Pre-training assessment. Well, it might make sense to actually have a task here as 09 training session. I'll explain why. Because this here now, I'm going to convert this to essentially being, well, I'll build up to it in a moment. I'll show you what happens. Pre-training assessment might be dependent on number 2, so we will have it finished to start. Training session recordings will have to be done after the training session. So this is going to get interesting. So training session recordings can only be done after the training session is complete. So let's have a look at that. That's a 9, finish to start dependency. Yep, it's going to look a little bit weird here. Post-training evaluation, again, 9 finish to start. Training completion and certificates will probably be kicked off around the same sort of time as the training modules having been sort of done or worked on. So let's make that a 2 finish to start. Now, There's nothing here to suggest that the training session will be kicking off by anything. So there is no dependency on the actual training session happening. So that doesn't make any sense to me. So once the training modules are complete, once the virtual classrooms are set up, what we'll do is we'll actually have this dependent on a couple of tasks. So we'll say here that this is dependent on the fact that 2 is complete and, in fact, 3 is complete. So there's 2 pieces that need to be finished here before I can actually kick that off. And in fact, I want to be able to give myself some breathing room, okay? I want to be able to say, you know what? I want to make sure that I've got all of those other items complete, and I want to give myself 5 days before I actually be able to get onto that. So I want to say there's a 5-day gap, so +5, before I can actually want to be able to kick that off. So you'll notice now here that we've pushed this task out, giving ourselves a 5-day gap before we can actually do this training session. Now, I said earlier that I probably want to not make that a task, right? Given that I might want to lock in that training session, let's assume that I actually want to kick that session off on, say, sometime in September, right? Let's put this out into the 12th of September. That's when I want to be able to make that happen. I'm going to convert this to a milestone because everything I do here now, everything prior to that, that's when I have to work towards. I've got myself a bit of a leeway. I've got myself a bit of a gap to be able to work on it, but that's the date that this session will in fact happen. Now, I've got a question on, can you set it up so that your days are only weekdays, not including weekends? Great question there, Deborah, and I'm glad that you asked. So the short answer is yes. And what I'll do here, and I'll show you how to go about making that adjustment, is by clicking on your profile picture, going to settings. And once you're in settings, if you're an account administrator or an account owner, there's an option here to choose your work schedules. So you can edit your work week so that you can choose only the weekdays rather than weekends. Because I've got examples of events that are happening on weekends here, I'm going to keep it in my demo instance to be working 7 days though. I hope that answers your question there, Deborah. Now, the benefits or the beauty of, I should say, having task dependencies is that if I need to move any of these other tasks out, they will automatically shift every other one underneath it, okay? So in doing this, I can move every single task that's underneath that with it accordingly. Now, there's a funky thing happening here because I've thrown my tasks right out of whack. But what's important to note is that, I don't want to move that to there, my apologies, hit Command Z. It's the beauty of hitting the undo button when you can. Now, because I, in fact, I changed one of my tasks to being a milestone, if I shift these tasks and they end up encroaching on my milestone here, you'll notice that there's a conflict in my tasks, right? Wrike will not let me essentially encroach on that task. Or if it does, it's going to let me know that that's the case. Now, we will not automatically move milestones, okay? Part of the reason why we don't move milestones is because we're saying that task will in fact start on the 12th of September. We cannot assume that it's going to automatically move or shift or change after the fact. You're telling me that it's going to start on the 5th of December. And by the way, part of the reason why there was a conflict earlier and was moving back was because of this 5-day predecessor, 5 days extra that we're trying to give it here. So there's a conflict immediately there telling me that that won't work. I've got another question here from somebody around adjusting the work schedule for the whole platform going from 5 to 7 days would impact all projects already in progress. What if you just wanted to adjust for some people and not impact all projects? Great question there, Royson. So if you head again to wrike.com/labs, there's a functionality piece there that we call disable automatic task rescheduling. And by having that enabled, you've effectively said, okay, regardless of what I've done to my work schedule, I'll continue to be able to actually move those dates across. Now, for certain individuals, if you wanted to give them only certain days that they would work on, create a new work schedule. Call this the Monday to Thursday schedule. And in doing so, in doing so, I'm going to only say that Monday to Thursday are applied. Users in your user management piece will then be given the option to have particular days applied to them. So we'll say that the VP, and I don't have rights as an administrator to change that particular individual. So let's have a look here under Accountant Caitlin, where we're going to say Accountant Caitlin will have a particular work schedule that is Monday to Thursday. I hope that answers your question there, Royson, and I hope that helps with your rescheduling of tasks as well. Now, we're quickly running out of time here, and I want to show you at least a couple of other things still. I created a view earlier for the Gantt charts, right? And I've got here a stack of tasks that are assigned to a project manager role. But let's assume that, in fact, I'm actually going to hand it over to, let's go, IT Director Earl. There's going to be this particular task that will be handled by IT Director Earl, that particular task, and let's assume that one. So there's a couple of tasks here for IT Director Earl, and there's a few tasks here that are for a project manager to work on. Lovely. I don't necessarily want IT project manager Earl getting visibility of all of that, right? Maybe I don't want him stressing about all of that at the moment. So what we can actually do, and what IT Director Earl could actually even do, is filter out all the tasks that are specific to him. So by clicking on the filter up the top here, I'll then be given a set of stack of options here on the right-hand side to filter out specifically for someone called IT Director Earl, right? Now, that Gantt chart, without dependencies, of course, will show you all the tasks that Earl needs to get cracking on, okay? I can now choose to save this filters as the default for this particular set of views. So anytime that someone comes to this project now and pulls up this Gantt chart view, probably won't make sense to have it labeled as Gantt chart for them. Let's call this IT Director Earl tasks. Okay. Now, if you like, you might choose to actually change those filters and say, we want to actually look at it to reflect the project manager. I want to look at tasks that are specifically assigned to the role of project manager. And in fact, I want to save that preset filter as project manager role tasks, something to that effect. So if I now head to, say, list view, and I have a public list view, hit create. At this particular view now, I can automatically filter out tasks for project manager Earl or, for the project manager role tasks. I can also then head to my table view, same notion, have that set of filters specifically set so that now project manager role tasks are showing. The only views that don't necessarily have that same functionality or that same layout is when you head to calendar, where you'll then have to actually create the views specifically. So this project with those tasks is automatically now being displayed in my calendar. Same filter rules apply. Be sure to pull it up. I'm looking up here for tasks that are specifically assigned to project manager. And we should only have, if I'm not going crazy, the tasks that are assigned to specifically that individual. Project manager. Did I not choose the right filter there? Suspect I didn't actually. The joys of working live. Going to head back to my calendar view, pull up the filter, of course, and grab myself project manager. I think I added that correctly there. Not sure if I did or not. There it is, the actual role type. My apologies. That's why that wasn't showing up. So I've got my visible project and the tasks that are specific to that project manager. Now, a couple of questions that are coming through here. Are these custom roles tasks displayed only in one project or for the space as a whole? Great question there, Michael. In this instance, this calendar is only applied to this project. You can pull it up to the at the space level and apply the same. Vikash, thank you. Is in a signee tab. I'm not sure what that was in reference. I hope that was you trying to help me out there, though. Now, got very little time left here. One last view that I want to touch on, and I'm conscious that we'll probably go over the half-hour mark here. So I will share the recording out if you do need to jump out. I want to add a view, and I'm going to pull up a chart. Again, make this a publicly available chart for the moment. But at this point, I want to be able to just quickly pull up tasks that are essentially by status and whoever the assignee might be, right? Kind of just not a great way to visualize that. So let's have it broken down by unassigned tasks and, of course, IT Director Earl at this point. Of course, there are other tasks that are assigned to job roles. They're not assigned to specific individuals. Maybe I want to be pulling up, say, tasks by their potentially, when their due dates are by. Maybe I want to be putting together a flow chart of when tasks and what we can expect to have completed in those periods. Now, you cannot break or change anything significant by looking at the charts. By pulling up reports in Wrike or using the chart functionality, you're surfacing data that's there. I absolutely encourage you to head to the labs page, get yourself this and have this enabled for yourself and have a bit of a play with it. Now, I don't think I'm going to be able to have time for the resource management component other than to make you aware of the fact that functionality does exist and it sits here within one of our classic views, that is the resources view. The functionality here is designed to show you what users are actually assigned to particular tasks on this project. If there were other individuals that had been assigned to it, for example, we might be able to pull up an assignee from, be it my VP product owner, Kelly. Kelly at this point has got a lot of time, but there is the potential for us to add a booking against her on this particular project. Now, I will spend a moment here. Bookings and effort are similar, but slightly different in their narrative. What we're suggesting here is that we're going to book a certain amount of time from product owner Kelly on the project. We don't know what task specifically they'll be working on yet. We don't know where they'll be focused their energy on, but we do know that at least for the moment, they're going to spend 25 hours on this project from the 25th until the 30th of September. So Wrike is going to tell us that at least for the moment, in basic structure, there's 0.6 hours taken up every day, or in percentage-wise, 8.2% of product owner Kelly spending 8.2% of her time on this particular project of booked hours. That's not effort. That's not assuming that's where exactly they'll be spending their time. We're suggesting this is how much time we might expect to spend on the project as a whole for the moment. I hope that helps you there. Now, I hope I've answered everybody's questions. I've got one more question here around. If you have time to answer the Gen AI question above. Oh, Michael, are these custom? Let's have a look here quickly. Will the AI functionality be pulling from specific list of important deliverables, items, or a specific type of project into the AI or for use? Michael, I'd want to spend a little more time with you on that one. And in fact, I want to be able to spend a little more time with you in total, to be honest, because I've got a question from you last week that I'd like to be able to go through. So thank you for your input there. I will spend a little more time on that one with you at some point. Before I do, however, I want to make everybody aware of the fact that there is a team around them. There is a support team that's there to help you with your queries around, I can't log in for the moment, or I can't get access to something, or Alex showed me some bit of functionality that for whatever reason isn't showing up in my instance. The support team is there to assist you. Head to help.wrike.com, and there is an option to hit the chat button down the bottom right corner, or submit your request, or submit your feedback, service request, I should say. There's a customer success manager that are there to help you understand the value of Wrike, making sure that you're recognizing value from the solution and that it's working as efficiently and as effectively as possible for you. There is our help page. I did mention that earlier, of course, from our support team. There is an article on every single bit of functionality that exists in Wrike, whether it's what I just showed you with the chart views, whether it's the resource view, it's all there. But also a great spot to join our community forum and share your best practices and suggestions with our team there as well, with other users from around the world. There's Wrike Discover. I'm sure you know about it because you've joined this session. So our online learning management solution, please continue following these sessions. This is why we like having you all here, and it's great to see you all here. And of course, last but not least, there's an account management team there. I shouldn't say last but not least. There's an account manager, of course, that works with practically every account, who is there typically from a licensing and billing or like logistics standpoint, but they're also a great conduit to getting you in touch with our professional services team. Our professional services team is there to help you get the most out of the solution as quickly and efficiently as possible, right? They are ultimately there to make sure that you get ROI out of the solution as quickly as possible. They are product experts. They are experts in their fields. They've worked in the industry for a significant amount of time, and they're there to make sure that they get your platform streamlined and set up and working as efficiently and collaborating as effectively as possible. They'll help you build out workspaces. They'll tailor training programs and make sure that your team understands how to use Wrike as well as possible. Now, I hope I've answered some of people's questions here. I have hit the half-hour mark here, so I wanted to say a big thank you to all of you. Thanks for joining. Really appreciate it. At the end of this session, there is going to be a form that will pop up on the page. We'd like to hear your feedback. We'd love to hear from you, get your ideas, suggestions, what you want to see out of these sessions for our futures as well. So again, big thanks for joining in, everybody, and we'll see you on our next instructor-led training session.